Hey there, welcome to this YouTube video on how to get out of a financial crisis. Today, we're going to discuss the topic that haunts most people's lives, especially millennials, which is dealing with financial problems. It's like we're all stuck in this never-ending cycle of living paycheck to paycheck, and if you're not careful, you can quickly fall into a financial crisis. But don't worry, my dear friends, because today we're going to learn how to get out of it, and as promised, I have an interesting anecdote and a fun fact to share with you all. So folks, this is a fun and exciting video on how to get out of a financial crisis step by step quickly. Now, we all know how overwhelming it can be when we find ourselves in a financial crisis. But fear not, I'm here to guide you through it with my wit and charm. And speaking of which, did you know that the first recorded financial crisis happened in 1637 when the Dutch went bonkers over tulips? Yeah, apparently people were paying ridiculous amounts of money for tulips, which eventually led to a massive market crash. I mean, who knew tulips could cause so much trouble, right? But don't worry, we're not here to talk about tulips, and we're here to talk about how to get out of a financial crisis, and I've got some great tips and tricks for you. So, grab your popcorn and let's get started. I know what you are thinking: who's this guy and what could he possibly know about getting out of a financial crisis? Well, let me tell you a little story. Once upon a time, I was a broke college student, living on a diet of instant noodles and dreams of financial stability, but, through trial and error, I managed to crawl my way out of the abyss of debt and into the shining light of financial freedom. And today, I'm here to share with you my top tips for getting out of a financial crisis, so you too can start living your best life. But before we begin, did you know that the average American has over $38,000 in personal debt? But don't worry, we're going to get through this together. Did you know that 73% of Americans have had a financial crisis at some point in their lives? That's right, it's a pandemic, people. But don't worry, I've got your back. Speaking of financial crises, let me tell you another story. One time, I was so broke that I had to sell my kidney on the black market just to pay rent. Okay, that's not true, but it sure felt like it, and I was so desperate that I tried every trick in the book to make a quick buck. But eventually, I realized that there's no shortcut to financial stability. It takes hard work and determination, but it's definitely achievable. Being in a financial crisis was shocking because I never thought that could happen to anyone. It was a wake-up call for me, and I realized that I needed to be more mindful of my spending. It also made me realize that a financial crisis can happen to anyone, no matter how much money they have or how stable their income is. Did you know that more than half of Americans don't have an emergency fund? That's right, 58% of Americans have less than $1,000 in their savings account. It's no wonder that so many people struggle to get out of a financial crisis when they don't have any money set aside for emergencies. So, what can we do to avoid falling into a financial crisis, and if we are already in one, how can we get out of it? Let's dive in and find out. Step 1: Face the reality. The first step in getting out of a financial crisis is to face the reality of your situation. You need to take a good, hard look at your finances and figure out exactly how much you owe and how much you have coming in. This can be a daunting task, but it's essential to get a clear picture of your financial situation. To make this process easier, you can use budgeting tools such as Mint or YNAB to help you track your expenses and income. This will help you see where your money is going and where you can cut back. Trust me, this step is crucial, and think of it like going to the doctor. You wouldn't go to the doctor and say, "Hey, doc, just fix me up," without looking at what's wrong, right? The same goes for your finances. You need to diagnose the problem before you can fix it. So, grab your calculator and start crunching those numbers. It is better to know the harsh reality than to live in blissful ignorance. Take a look at your bank statements, bills, and any other financial documents you have. Make a list of your debts and prioritize them by interest rate. This will give you a clear idea of what you're up against. Step 2: Cut your expenses. Once you've assessed your situation, it's time to start cutting your expenses. This means taking a hard look at your spending habits and identifying areas where you can cut back. Do you really need that daily latte from Starbucks? Can you cancel that gym membership you haven't used in months? Trust me, every little bit helps. And hey, if you're really struggling, there are always some creative ways to cut back, like, have you ever considered using your neighbor's Wi-Fi instead of paying for your own? Just kidding. Kind of. One way to make this process less painful is to look for free or cheaper alternatives to the things you enjoy. For example, instead of going to the movies, you can rent a movie from Redbox or borrow one from the library and start cooking at home instead of ordering takeout. Trust me, I know it's hard to give up those little luxuries, but they're not worth drowning in debt over, and who knows, maybe you'll discover a hidden talent for cooking or coffee making. Step 3. Increase your income. Cutting back on expenses is essential, but sometimes it's not enough to get out of a financial crisis. In that case, you may need to increase your income. You can do this by finding a higher paying job, taking on a side hustle, or selling things you no longer need. One way to increase your income that is often overlooked is to negotiate your salary. Many people are afraid to ask for a raise, but the worst thing that can happen is that your boss says no. If you don't ask, you'll never know. This also can mean picking up some extra shifts at work, freelancing, or selling items highly needed online to make extra money. And if all else fails, you can always resort to some good old-fashioned panhandling. Just kidding, don't do that, but seriously, there are plenty of legitimate ways to increase your income, so don't be afraid to get creative and think outside the box. Who knows, your side hustle could turn into a full-time career. Freelance work, dog walking, and food delivery are all great options that can bring in extra cash. You could also try negotiating a raise or applying for a higher paying job. Step 4. Create a budget and stick to it. Now that you've cut back on unnecessary expenses, it's time to create a budget and stick to it. This may sound boring, but it's essential to getting out of a financial crisis. Start by listing all your monthly expenses, including rent, utilities, and groceries. This also means tracking your spending and making sure you're not overspending in any areas. There are plenty of budgeting apps and tools available that can help you stay on track. Remember, a budget is not meant to be a punishment. It's a way to help you achieve financial freedom. Step 5. Build an emergency fund. An emergency fund is your safety net when unexpected expenses arise. Aim to have at least 3 to 6 months worth of expenses saved up in case of an emergency. Start by putting a small amount aside each month. Gradually increase the amount as your financial situation improves. This fund will give you peace of mind and help you avoid going into debt when things go wrong. Step 6. Tackle your debts. Debt is one of the biggest barriers to financial stability. So, if you have debt, focus on paying it off as quickly as possible. Start by paying off the debt with the highest interest rate first, and then move on to the next one. You can also try negotiating with your creditors to see if you can get a lower interest rate or payment plan. Finally, it's time to tackle your debts. Remember that list you made in step 1, start by paying off the debt with the highest interest rate first, while still making minimum payments on your other debts. Once you've paid off one debt, move on to the next one on the list. It may take time, but with dedication and persistence, you can become debt-free. Identifying which debts are the most urgent and need to be paid off first, and generally, you want to focus on paying off high-interest debts like credit cards first. But, if you have multiple debts with similar interest rates, you may want to prioritize the smallest debts first. This is called the snowball method. So there you have it, folks. 6 steps to get out of a financial crisis. Remember, it's not going to happen overnight, but with hard work and determination, you can achieve financial stability. And always keep in mind, don't be too hard on yourself. We all make mistakes, and financial crises can happen to anyone. The important thing is to learn from your mistakes and keep moving forward. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. We hope you enjoyed this video and feel inspired to get out of financial crises. Thank you for watching, and if you see value in this video, please don't forget to like, share and subscribe for more financial tips.